This happened last month. I am a 26-year-old male living in Atlanta. I took a side job as an Uber driver. I worked morning shift in a garage so that I can drive Uber at night. I prefer the Uber night shift because of less traffic. Anyways, one night I was finishing up a trip nearby the city mall around 8:30. It was a long summer night. I decided to take one more trip and go home to enjoy my weekend in peace. I waited near the mall to get another trip request, but I kept waiting for 10 or 15 minutes and nothing happened. Being disappointed, I thought to call it a day and return home. I lived in a small cabin at the outskirts. I took the highway and started to drive home. I put on some music and opened the car window. A cool breeze came in and gave me some relief. I lit a cigarette and kept driving in a light mood. I couldn't wait to return home and sleep till noon the next day. Everything was going fine until I reached near the highway tunnel. IMR Highway has a huge tunnel that connects the city with the outskirt area. I was almost near the tunnel. Due to the roads being completely empty, I was driving a bit faster. I was almost 10 to 15 hands distance from entering the tunnel when a man sprinted right in front of my car from the bushes. I pushed the brake so hard that the car stopped, making the tires screech loudly. I got extremely scared, thinking I might have hurt that guy. My eyes kept searching for that man, but he was nowhere to be found. Suddenly, a hand grasped my shoulder from the window. At first, I was scared like hell, but then I got my shit together and looked out the window. I saw a man in his late 30s panting and gasping for air. He said in a broken voice, "Please, help me, please." I realized he is in danger or something similar. I asked him, "What is it? Why are you freaking out like this?" The man looked here and there as if someone is out there looking for him. He then said in a whispering voice, "They are searching for me. Please, you must help me." I got out of the car and looked around. Being honest, there wasn't a single creature nearby. The wide, empty highway was filled with the sounds of crickets chirping. I stared at the tunnel to check if someone was there. The long, hollow tunnel had nothing but yellow lights in it. I asked the man, "Who are you searching for?" The man said in a terrifyingly low voice, "The shadow people. They want me dead." I was out of my mind at that time. I didn't know what the hell this guy was talking about. I said, "Is this some kind of a sick joke? 'Cause I'm really not in the mood right now." The man got inside the car. He sat in the driver's seat and said, "Just drive. We must leave this place right now. They're coming." I got into the car cluelessly. I told the man, "Let me call 911 for you. See, my house is on the other side of the tunnel. You can wait in my car until they arrive." The man then took out a knife from his pocket and held it near my throat. He screamed at me and said, "Just fucking drive. I'm not gonna die at the hand of those shadow people." I didn't know what to do then. I was stronger than the guy. I would have knocked him out immediately if the knife wasn't pointed at me. I said in a low but firm voice, "Listen, let's just relax. I will drive you wherever. You can just take the knife down." The man started screaming again. "Looks like you have no fear of death. If you don't drive right now." Before he could finish the sentence, he looked at the back of the car and became numb. He was staring like a statue. I asked, "What is wrong with you? There is no such thing called shadow people. Stop this insanity and let me call 911 for help." The man then said, "Oh my God, they are watching us now." I turned around to see what the hell he was talking about, looking at the backside of the car. I knew it was something made up by his crazy mind, but as I looked, my heart dropped into my stomach. Who are these people? Where did they come from? I swear, guys, there was a group of black shadows standing on the road. Nothing was visible except darkness on their entire body. The man said, "Now do you believe me? Drive, drive." I said in a panicked voice, "What the hell? Who are these people? Why do they look like that?" The man said, "They are all dead, and now they want my soul." The group started to walk towards our car. I can't explain the horror, because even if there were 10 to 12 people, not a single step taken by their foot made a sound. It felt like they were all kind of floating on the air instead of walking. I tried to start the car engine, but suddenly it didn't start. I tried again and again, but nothing happened. I was completely shocked by how the car suddenly got stuck like this. The man said in a panicked voice, "They're coming now. Please, do something." I twisted the car key one last time, and finally, the car started. I pressed the accelerator, and the car picked up speed. We drove into the tunnel at full speed. I looked in the rearview mirror, and there was no one behind us. I made up my mind to reach home and call 911 to hand over this freak. I was almost close to getting out of the tunnel, just when a group of black shadows appeared from the air and blocked the exit. I hit the brakes and stopped in front of the group. But this time, I didn't turn off the engine. It was hard for me to believe what I was seeing. There were no faces, no color, only black figures standing at some distance from the car. The man then screamed and said, "Why don't you leave me alone?" and started to sob like a child. What happened next still gives me chills to this day. The group suddenly opened up all their eyes at the same time. Now, there were black shadows with huge, wide eyes. Their eyes were blood red and their pupils were pale white. I have never seen such horrifying eyes in my entire life. They all looked at the man beside me and made terrifying growls. For a second, it felt like we were being hunted by a pack of wolves. I broke free from my numbness and pressed the accelerator once again. The car drove into the black shadow group and we passed through them as air blew upon us. As we made it out of the tunnel, I finally saw red and blue lights coming from the other side. I saw 3 or 4 cop cars. I didn't call for 911 yet, but I was out of all senses and rational thinking. I was, in one word, exhausted. The man in the car was still sobbing and muttering, "Please let me go. Leave me alone." I know what I faced that night might seem like a made-up story to some, but if you believe me, then I do have a rational explanation behind that vicious night. The cops came and arrested the man. They told me he is convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment for mass murder in a cathedral. He broke out of prison a few hours back, but it's still really shocking to his state of mind. The cops took him back. I later read about that man. His name was Peter Shipman. One Sunday morning, he entered a church with 2 of his followers. After the prayer ceremony, his followers locked the church door from the inside. They shot 7 men and 5 women who came to attend the prayer. They robbed them and escaped the area. I can't even imagine how vicious that scenario would be when he shot all those people and left their bodies drenched in blood. But somehow, one of his followers drove their car into a tree while escaping. He died as his head bashed against the dashboard of the car. The man and his other follower ran away. Cops arrested the man under a dirty bridge. He was muttering, "Shadow people killed my partners." The body of the second follower was seen floating on the river near the bridge. Investigating officers claimed that the man killed the other partner to acquire the entire share. But if you ask me, I think it was those people's haunting spirits who took revenge on these 3 men. I have started day shifts in Uber now. I have decided to stay home at night for a couple of months to get over this unnatural incident. I don't know when I'll be able to go out at night again without the fear of shadow people. Riley started late from her friend's house. Her feet stumbled as she walked on the sidewalks. She went to attend a party and got really drunk. The streetlight stood on the empty roads. There was no one around her. Her house is still 30 minutes away from here. She somehow stopped under a streetlight and decided to book an Uber for a safe journey home. With gloomy eyes and hazy vision, she booked a cab. The cab number read 2009. Riley waited for a few minutes. She looked around her. The wind and the silence of the night spooked her a bit. She thought to herself, "I should have listened to Casey. It was a bad idea to leave for home tonight." All kinds of tense thoughts were going through her mind when a pair of headlights appeared from the end of the road. A white-colored Uber kept coming towards her. Riley immediately gestured with her hand, and the Uber stopped right in front of her. She was so drunk that the bright headlights of the car made her vision even more blurry. She saw the number, 200. Oh, yes, this is it, and got into the cab. The cab driver looked at the rearview mirror and said, "Where will you go?" Riley replied, 21 IMR Street. Just drive faster. The driver had a weird smile on his face. He started the car and replied, "As you wish." Riley closed her eyes and sat for a few minutes. She started to feel a bit fine. As she opened her eyes, she saw they weren't on the highway anymore. The car is now going through an old dusty road. She got a bit tensed and said, "Hey, which road is this?" The car driver smiled and said, "I took a shortcut, madam. Don't worry." Riley checked the GPS, and there was indeed a connecting road at some distance from this one. The driver started to chat with her. "So, you live alone, huh?" the driver said. Riley replied, "Yeah." She was trying to keep the conversation as short as possible, but it seemed like the driver was hitting on her. The driver then said something which ran a shiver down her spine. "You know, a beautiful girl like you should not roam in the streets at night all by herself. Haven't you heard of the incidents that are happening these days?" Riley suddenly remembered what her friend Sarah told her at the party. They were all sitting on the couch and having drinks when Sarah said, "Have you guys heard about the slit-throat killer?" Everyone got surprised, including Riley. Sarah went on saying that for the last couple of days, Atlanta cops have said to have discovered 3 bodies from the highways. It seemed like someone slit their throats and dumped their bodies in the bushes on the high road. The cops have no idea who did this, but they are suspecting that there might be a serial killer roaming the streets at night, luring people into traps and slicing their throats. All 3 bodies were found on abandoned, empty roads, pointing out that when they were killed, there wasn't anyone around the area. Riley got all tensed and immediately got charged up. But the horror was yet to unfold in front of her. She received a notification from her Uber app. Until now, she closed the app after getting into the car. The notification read, "You have been charged for the canceled booking." Riley opened the app and realized she is stepping into grave danger. Car number 2009 waited for her at the pickup location for almost 15 minutes. But as she didn't show up there, the driver just canceled the ride and left. If her ride has been canceled, then who is this person driving her right now? Riley's stomach dropped in fear. She couldn't speak or say a single word. There is no point of screaming right now because there wasn't a single human being nearby. She can't call someone in front of this guy asking for help. Riley knew this man took her into his car with bad intentions. Is he the slit-throat killer everyone was talking about at the party? Oh my God. Drops of sweat appeared on her forehead. Riley calmed herself down. The only way she can get out of this situation alive is if she uses her brain. The man looked at her from the rearview mirror and asked, "Are you all right, madam?" Riley smiled and said, "Yeah, I'm fine. How long will it take?" The man replied in a cold voice, "Not much longer." The man's reply felt like something is about to happen at any moment now. Riley was praying to God to save her from this unknown guy and his evil intentions. Riley said to the driver, keeping her voice as calm as possible, What were you talking about back then?" The driver said, "Oh, you mean the slit-throat killer? Interesting guy, huh?" Then the man chuckled. Riley said, "Interesting. The cops are going to catch that killer soon. They have already found his victims' bodies." The driver laughed this time and replied, "Madam, the cops found his victims because he wanted them to. People like this are insane. You can't spot them out even if they come right in front of you. They wear masks to fool you." The more the driver spoke about this serial killer, Riley's heart started to beat faster. But suddenly, the car started to jerk hugely and the driver pulled the brake. The car stopped, making a loud noise. The driver got out of the car and lifted the hood to check the engine. Riley sat inside quietly. The driver then came close to her window and said, I think there has been some issue in the engine. Wait inside as I check it out. Riley knew the end was near. The man has probably stopped the car on his own and is now making this all up. It's high time, and Riley needs to act. The man again went in front of the car. Riley could hear the metal sound coming from behind the car bonnet. She slowly opened the car door, grabbing her bag in her hand, then tiptoed to the back of the car. There were vast empty fields on one side and deep woods on the other side of the road. The driver said, "Looks like we have to think of some other option, madam. I don't think this car will start tonight. If you don't mind, my house is nearby. We can go there and call the mechanics." So this is why this guy took this road, Riley thought to herself. This guy wants to lure her into the woods now and murder her like his 3 other victims. Riley didn't respond. She stood at the back of the car as silently as possible. Riley knew this is her only chance. She started to hear footsteps approaching her. With every step coming close to her, Riley slid to the opposite direction. By the time the driver reached behind the car, Riley went to his side. The driver got shocked as he realized Riley was missing. He said in a confused voice, "Madam, madam." Just then, he heard Riley's voice behind him. "Yes? What is it?" Riley said in a firm voice. Her eyes were wide and big. The driver got spooked for a moment. He then said, We can walk to my house and call for a mechanic." Riley smirked and replied, "You are not my ride, no? I booked a cab number 2009. Your cab is 2006. The cab driver smiled awkwardly and said, "Well, you asked for a lift and I could use some extra cash, so I thought I'd drive you, but I took a wrong shortcut. Please don't call the cops on me, madam." Riley looked at him and said, "For a moment, I thought you were the slit-throat killer." The man laughed awkwardly and said, "No, madam, I am definitely not that creepy guy. Please believe me." Riley laughed and said, "You are wrong again. It's not a he, but a she." The driver spoke in a terrified face. "What?" Riley took out her shining knife and lifted her hand. Her innocent face turned into a devil. She smiled in a horrible way and sliced the driver's throat with one slash. The man felt lifeless on the floor while choking on his own blood. She then washed her hands with a water bottle inside her bag. She always carries water with her. It is better to wash off the blood immediately before it dries out on her skin. She pushed the body in the ditch nearby the dusty road with a kick. The high road is 5 minutes walk from there. She reached the highway and booked herself an Uber this time. It was 12 o'clock at night. Riley got inside the car and said to the driver, "Drive me home. I feel tired." Next day, the news flashed. New body found near an old dusty road at the town outskirt. Cops are saying this is the 4th victim of the slit-throat killer. The victim was an Uber driver, probably coming home that night as he had no bookings in the record. It seems like the killer stopped his car and lured him into his trap like every other victim. The senior commissioner of police has said they are going to catch this man very soon and put him behind bars for the rest of his life. Riley sipped from her coffee cup and gave an evil smile as she watched the news, sitting on her living room couch. Crazy Uber driver. This is a true incident that disturbed me for a long time. I was in high school back then. One evening, I went to one of my friends' houses for a sleepover. My friend Thomas and I decided to go to a supermarket nearby to grab some beers. Thomas's parents were out of town, so we kind of had the house to ourselves. We planned to drink beer and watch a football match that night. The supermarket was quite far from his house, so we decided to call for an Uber. Our ride arrived within 10 minutes and we hopped in. The driver was polite and well-behaved. He seemed like a man in his late 30s. He was wearing blue t-shirt and black trousers. Thomas started to chat with the guy eventually. I was sitting quietly at the back seat while Thomas was in the front. Being honest, I didn't notice the man's face when we got into the car. We booked the ride as a round trip. After reaching the supermarket, Thomas went inside to get the booze while I stood outside the car waiting for his return. The driver sat inside the car. I lit a cigarette, and for the first time, my eyes went to the rearview mirror. I saw the man's face. There was nothing odd about his face, but as my eyes went to his neck, I got a bit startled. I saw deep scratch wounds on his neck, as if someone scratched him really bad with long, sharp nails. The man suddenly noticed me watching his neck. He immediately pulled his t-shirt collar up to hide them. I thought he might have some pet at his house, or whatever it is, it's definitely none of my business. Thomas came back within a few minutes and we got into the car. This time, I noticed a change of behavior in the driver. Thomas again started to chat, but the driver kept cutting the conversation short. Suddenly, it felt like he was no longer interested in talking and just wanted to drop us off as soon as possible. I was sure Thomas felt weird too with this sudden change. He then handed me the beers and said, "Keep it in the back, Smith." I took the plastic bags and I dropped it behind the back seat. The car had a narrow space behind the seat I was on. There was still 15 to 20 minutes to reach home, so I started to scroll through my phone and silence took place inside the car. Everything was going well when suddenly the driver hit the brakes to avoid hitting a cat crossing the road. It created a little jerk and I heard the bottles clink to each other. I wanted to make sure that none of the bottles were broken, so I decided to check the plastic bag. But this time, as I lifted the bag to see inside, something unexpected happened. I saw that the bottom of the plastic was wet with a liquid-like substance. It was dark inside the car and I couldn't see clearly at first. I placed my hand underneath and what I discovered gave me a hell of a shock. The liquid was nothing but blood. I was sure that the blood somehow came from the car itself, so without attracting the driver's attention, I switched on my phone's flashlight and tried to look at the narrow empty space behind. What I saw made my skin crawl in fear. A girl was tied and taped lying inside that empty space. She was hit on the head with a heavy object which caused massive bleeding. I accidentally put the bag on her face and thus her blood left a spot on the bag too. I could tell from her still motionless body that she was dead. Now I understand why the driver had those scratch marks on his neck. This man is a cold-blooded murderer. He just murdered the girl, and before he could get rid of her body, he had to perform his duty to stay away from all kinds of suspicion, so he probably hid her in this empty space. The way her body was kept, it made me immensely disturbed. I mean, anyone could barely fit there. This man is a predator, a freaking devil. I realized I have to inform Thomas about this alarming situation without letting this driver know that I've discovered his terrifying secret. I texted Thomas about the entire situation. I saw his fingers trembling as he read my text. He then looked at the driver. He couldn't believe this man was capable of doing such evil. Thomas and I made a plan because no way are we letting this freak walk free after taking an innocent life. The car took a left turn onto an adjacent street to the highway. Thomas said, "Hey, can you pull over for a sec? I need to pee." We wanted to make sure that the driver was unarmed so that we could tackle him and knock him out. Thomas got out of the car and went behind a bush near the tree. Time passed away, but he didn't come back. I saw the driver getting restless. He turned to me and said, "Where did your friend go? Call him. I have to be somewhere after dropping you off." I called Thomas's phone and it rang inside the car. I told him to leave the phone inside so that I could make my next move. I said in a worried voice, "Oh no, seems like he forgot his phone here. Would you mind giving a check on him? I saw him going towards the bush." The driver reluctantly looked here and there, then started to walk towards the bush. As soon as the man went behind the car, I jumped outside and held him by the neck. The man grunted in surprise and Thomas jumped from the bushes. He tackled him and he started to throw kicks and punches like a jungle cat trapped in a cage. Then he took out a knife from his pocket and slit my hand. I wasn't at all ready for the sudden attack. I screamed in pain as blood started to drip from my hand. Thomas kicked him between his legs from the front and the man fell on the ground in pain. The knife from his hand dropped onto the floor. Thomas then punched him hard on the face. The man passed out immediately and we heard police car sirens coming from a distance. That night, we couldn't watch the match, but none of us regrets that for a second. The cops came and took the man into custody. They sent the girl's body for inspection. We will feel sad forever that we couldn't save that girl. Later, we came to know that this Uber driver picked up this girl from the road. The girl was a drug dealer. The man tried to take advantage of her. This would have led to a big argument, and in the rage of the moment, the man hit the girl with a rod. He couldn't handle the fact that he had killed this girl. He decided to get rid of her body after dropping us off. I still think this man would have escaped if Thomas and I didn't decide to man up about this situation. That night, we did something good, and I want to tell everyone to step up whenever you see someone harassing a woman or a man in front of you. If we decide wisely, we could stop many bad incidents and stop various kinds of crime from happening. The driver is now behind bars. Whenever I go out at night, I keep my eye open now, because the devil masks his face with the veil of innocence.